and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I shall be your host for this evening. Joining me tonight is a gentleman by the name of Neil Fawcett, who is from Spartan Games. Now, for those who have just listened to the most recent episode with myself and Colin, which, and if you haven't, you should have, because it was a pretty good one and it was our Christmas special and it was fantastic. Then we do mention Spartan Games' latest Kickstarter, so if you haven't listened to that, get back on it. If you have listened to that, thank you very, very much. Good evening, Neil. How are you doing?
Hey, Richard. I'm good, thanks. Yourself?
Good. Yes. I'm. Thank you very much for coming on. And to put a timestamp on this, we are both escaping Strictly Come Dancing. The final.
Well, you know, one of the guys who develops rules with me, Derek Sinclair, he's another. We're kind of strictly. We escape it on a regular basis, so when our wives are watching Strictly, we run away and talk wargaming things because it's safer.
That sounds fantastic. That sounds the way to go forward.
Absolutely. It's just, vanish away, shut the door, and let them kind of whoop and make strange noises at some kind of weird nonsense on the TV.
So this is what we call a work in progress show, and what that means is that we bring on somebody from the industry, and the reason that Neil is along tonight, because you've probably heard us talk about board games, you've heard us talk about card games, you've heard us even jump into LARPing a little bit recently, and a bit about RPGs and Dungeons and Dragons, but we haven't really jumped into kind of into Neil's realm. Now what would you describe the kind of genre of is it tabletop wargaming, you would call it?
I suppose you're going to say, tabletop war games is probably the best way to describe it. I mean, my wife would describe it as that craziness that infested my husband's wife brain years ago and took over all common sense. But yes, it is. I mean, I used to describe it quite amusingly as a thing that kind of almost ended my marriage.
Oh well, there you go. Well, it could be worse. It could be it could be football. Or any, I guess, male-related hobby. Always.
No, I did all that when I was younger. I mean, I was an avid footballing crazy person when I was younger. I think the thing with wargaming is it's that kind of addictive personality. I mean, and people, they love what they do. They get very bought into it. They love the whole hobby. I mean, I'm an avid collector. I don't buy one thing, I buy 100 things. And
okay.
And when I go into wargaming, I love military history, and it was my way of kind of going crazy with it. And and my whole route into wargaming was a complete accidental farce anyway. But here we are, many years on, and here we are with me in Spartan Games.
But then again, at the end of the day, you're doing something which probably a lot of guys that are into the wargaming would probably kind of give their eye teeth to actually do, because you've not only taken it past the kind of the mere obsession and collection, but you've actually decided to turn it into kind of like a business thing. I mean, one of the things that we do on kind of We're Not Wizards is we like to, and this is becoming cheesy because I say it too often, I need to come up with something else, but we do kind of go back into the past before having a little stare at the present and then take a look into the future. So we're kind of interested in it's be interesting to find out, you say it's a bit of a kind of a farce. How did you get into the hobby? I mean, how did you kind of take that first step?
Well, my background, I'm a technologist at heart, and I worked in technology for many years, and I was a journalist for 17 years. I took a kind of a life decision to exit my journalistic career. We came down to Somerset for a nice, quiet, easy life. My wife has worked in corporate industry for many years, and we both worked pretty hard careers. I mean, I did I worked very hard as a journalist for 17 years.
What kind of journalism were you doing?
Technology, business, and war, and military.
Oh right, okay.
So I was very blessed to have had a career that treated me very well. Allowed me to live a good life, and I experienced many fascinating and exciting things, and met some amazing people. So it was one of those, kind of like it really was a lifestyle. It was wonderful. And one of my relaxations was I quite like painting toy soldiers.
All right.
So it kind of allowed me to just get out of the zone and just chill out. And it actually started with a friend of mine, Mike Cowles, buying me a model kit, which I didn't really have anything to do with that company's products. I mean, it was just he just bought it for me because he thought it would be quite good fun, and it sat under my coffee table. And actually, the reason I go into wargaming actually completely comes back down to ground zero with my mother-in-law's crazy cat.
Okay. Stop that. So for those that didn't hear that, it comes down to your mother-in-law and her crazy cat.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
My
mother-in-law moved house, and she had to get rid of her cat, and her cat came to live with us, and our cats did not like her cat, and her cat was basically this annoying, crazy, psychopathic thing. It was a bit of it was just mad. Anyway, my wife put a notice up at work about a home needed for a cat. At the time we didn't tell the people that the cat was crazy. Anyway, young guy called Matt turned up, and he kind of he spotted the model kit under my coffee table, which had probably been there for about 9 months, and he said, "Oh, are you into wargaming?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Oh, but you've got that." And he said, "That's for a wargame." And I said, "Oh, my friend bought me it." We got chatting, and then he said to me, "I'm going to a wargame show on Saturday. Do you want to come with me?" And for some strange reason, I said, "Sure, why not?"
Why not?
And so I found myself on the Saturday getting in the car with this person I didn't really know who'd taken a psychopathic cat, and driving all the way to the Midlands. I think it was Leicester or something, and walking into this show, and it was like I'd somehow got myself lost into a sweet shop. And I ended up spending over £2,000 filling my car.
What? You spent what, 2,000? What? Sorry, £2,000.
Yeah, I just literally I could not have wedged anything else in my car, and I had a big 4x4, and I literally filled the bloody thing.
What did Matt think of this? Did Matt kind of like?
He was just he thought he was awesome. He thought it was hysterical. When I got home, my wife hit the roof. I mean, she tripped out.
Well, no wonder.
It was basically got rid of the cat and then ended up coming back with a whole other box of nonsense.
It's like the old Fast Show sketch, isn't it? So Colin, did you go out and get the milk and the pasta that we needed? No, something even better. He turned around and there's like.
Yeah. He got the cow. He came back with the cow instead. Yeah, he got the milk, but I got the cow instead. Yeah.
So
yeah, no, a little bit.
How many boxes was there? I mean, this is.
I dread to think. I mean, if I was to tell you that my wargaming collection, at one point, I ended up with over 250,000 figures in my collection, and about.
Okay,
5,000.
I'm gonna have to ring the bell because I think we can all say that our previous record for number of things collected was held by Brian Wade for having about 40,000 Magic cards.
Wow, that's a hell of a letter. Well,
yeah.
I can tell you now. If you were to come to my wargame collection, I've trimmed it down now because obviously I've got my own wargames company now. But I on site at my office I have a 40-foot by 10-foot lockup with what's left of my wargames collection in it.
And how many have you still got, do you reckon?
I'm probably down to maybe 30 or 40,000 figures. I've still got about 5,000 tanks.
This is brilliant. I could just imagine you just coming in and saying, "So how did you get on?" And you must have there must have been a conversation that went on between you and your wife to say, do you know what? I can't believe I've just asked this guy. I can't believe I'm going to go into this show with Matt.
Yeah. Well, do you know, I'm working on the idea that my wife will never listen to this, so I'm kind of praying to God that she never does. But no, I mean, my addiction to wargaming at one point, I was probably spending $10,000 a month.
Really?
Yeah.
Was this while you were working as a journalist, though?
No, I'd actually quit.
Oh right.
So
okay.
this was me. This is just me filling my time.
You've been better with some kind of cocaine habit or something, because you would have been able to hide the evidence.
Well, do you know what? My wife would probably tell you it would have been less antisocial.
No, that's not true, because you need at least one person to play a wargaming game.
I think I went a bit unhinged when I actually left it, because at one point in my old house in Hampshire, the top floor of the house was kind of my home office. I had a lovely kind of sort of 40-foot by 20-odd foot home office. It was fantastic, and because through my journalism, I had about 20-25 PCs on a network up there. So I used to have LAN gaming sessions where mates would come round and we'd game in my office. So between that and wargaming, I was kind of like basically living the dream.
That sounds like, yeah. This is just like the strangest. It's not strange as in strange, but this is potentially the best story ever that we've heard.
I have. Well, I've been lucky over the years. I've actually been. I like I said, worked hard. I pulled the stops out as a journalist for a long time. My wife, she's had it. She still does to this day, but she worked. She worked herself silly with it all. She's an incredible worker. Yeah. Very fastidious with things. I just I don't know really. I mean, I kind of enjoyed it. I loved the gaming. I mean, I used to work in the gaming industry a long time ago anyway, so I always loved video games. So
what did you do? What did you do in the gaming industry?
I was connected to the Atari world, so I know that whole kind of Atari 8-bit, 16-bit, Atari ST, Commodore Amiga, that whole thing. And that's that I kind of came from that world before I got into journalism and proper technology.
What were you doing? What were you doing with them then?
I used to run some magazines years ago called Atari User and Atari ST User and things like that a long time ago.
You did? I know them. I remember those magazines.
Well, that was database publications it started with, then it went on to a company, then they became Europress. I don't know what happened to them after that. Yeah, I kind of fell into that by accident, and then I then applied for a job on a thing called Computer Weekly, which at the time, when I first came across it, was just an advert I saw in The Guardian, and I didn't even know what the hell it was, and it was only when I came down for the job interview that I'm pretty sure that John, who's the guy who interviewed me, I'm pretty sure he felt sorry for me because he was 45 minutes late for my interview. So to this day, I swear to God that he only gave me the job because he was embarrassed.
It was a pity thing. He could have came in, sorry for keeping you so long.
Yeah, it was probably like, oh my God, there's this northern bloke arrived who wants a job and he thinks he can write. And it's like, so it's out of sheer indulgence, he kind of like gave me a job. And it was fun. I mean, I kind of, I got to do some really cool stuff, interview the people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Rod Canyon, who founded Compaq, and all these luminaries in the industry. Became good friends with a lot of them, and it was fabulous. It was a great 17 years of my life, so I think really, if I'm honest, I mean, a lot of it was it was almost outside of the envelope anyway, because if you do well at journalism's a hard job to make a lot of money out of anyway. It's not the best paying career in the world, but excuse me, working in technology meant that I got to to write books and do stuff and have a good living, and of course met my wife because she was working at Microsoft at the time. All right. And it sort of it kind of just snowballed for me, and you end up with you're in a kind of an artificial environment because it's not really the real world. I ate in the best restaurants in London, and I never paid. I went to the bar, and I very rarely paid because the PR person would probably
yeah, yeah.
Or I'd get on an aeroplane, I'd fly first class somewhere, and then and end up in Los Angeles or New York or I don't know, wherever. Kind of being kind of like pampered and looked after and spoiled.
Bumping into Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and.
Oh yeah, Steve Jobs was the first person to ever throw me out of an interview. Actually, it's quite funny.
No, right, okay. No, see, this is let's okay. Well, how did that happen then?
He'd left Apple. I mean, the whole Apple thing had gone all a bit horribly wrong for him, and he'd founded Next Computer, and basically we were at the. I'm pretty sure, if memory serves me, it was a while ago. It was the Palladium, and we were in a meeting room there, or dressing something in the Palladium. I've no idea to this day why the hell it was the Palladium, I had a bit of a reputation in those days as being a bit of a hard-nosed journalist, and that's me being polite to myself. I think most people thought I was an idiot, a journalist. I was on a training course once, and a journalist told me. He said, "There's two types of journalists." He said, "There's the ones that people remember, and there's the ones that people who don't know who their name is."
All right.
He said, and you're at the beginning of your career, make your mind up. Do you want to be remembered for who you are, or do you want people to just not know who you are?
Yeah.
And I very quickly decided that I had to make sure that people remembered me. So anyway, I'm in the interview, and he was launching the Next Computer, and I was working on a business newspaper that understood technology, and I understood technology, so I was basically being a little bit acerbic towards him, and his expectations on what he would do or not do with the next workstation, and I was being a little bit flippant, I suppose. And in the end, he told me I was asking the wrong interview and told me to leave.
Were you calling him out on some of the? Because if you got the techie stuff, were you turning around and saying, "Well, actually, that's going to be too slow, or that might be a bit quick, or that might not work"?
I kept using the word proprietary, and because in the industry, I was watching an industry that was manifestly changing itself away from the whole idea of proprietary. It was all standardization, and the whole revolution of the PC was about standardization.
Yeah.
And everything about the next workstation cried non-standard, and it was right the way down to having stupid things like optical drives, which at the time were not fast enough to actually be any common sense to anybody, really.
Yeah.
The display was, whilst an interesting idea, didn't make sense. I mean, there was just nothing about it that gelled as something that was going to become an industry-leading product. It was a great piece of technology. I mean, there was some fundamental underlying architectural things that were fantastic.
Yeah.
But the core crux of it was this thing was going to die. It was just going to die.
I can just imagine there being because you get these big motivational kind of pictures on LinkedIn and places like that. Steve Jobs saying, never give up. Every failure eventually leads to success. And folk going, that's so profound. And another person commenting saying, he was so brilliant. And you would comment underneath saying, he chucked me out in an interview once. Just imagine.
Yes, it was a bit. I mean, obviously the guy was a luminary and all that sort of good stuff. But it was quite funny. I mean, it's sort of. That sort of summed.
What did the boss say when you got back and say so? When we published the interview, and you kind of said,
I just got told to write the piece, and I wrote a very acerbic piece, and I think at the time I wrote a piece that said if they sold 30,000 units, I'll be shocked. And I think they probably sold about 30,002.
Oh my goodness.
But it was like I say, it was a good career. I was very fortunate to have been allowed to play in the park, with these people, because I was born and bred on the council estate in Middlesbrough.
All right.
So I didn't exactly kind of wake up one morning and go, do you know what? I'm actually going to go and become a journalist and make an impact on the industry.
Yeah.
Duh. I mean, back in Middlesbrough in those days, you were lucky if you had a job.
Yeah.
So that's me. I mean, that's basically where I started. So I kind of met Matt, went to a war game show, went loopy, bought a ton of stuff, kept buying tons of stuff, and that was that really. That's how I got into wargaming.
So what kind of stuff were you playing?
What
was the balance between, obviously, if you keep collecting?
I've always been into World War II. I love World War II, 20mm scale World War II. I was kind of brought up on the whole airfix thing. So that kind of that 1/72 scale was really appealing to me. Like Napoleonics, yeah, I mean, basically it was predominantly kind of Napoleonics and World War II, I guess, that kind of got me hooked at the beginning. And then American Civil War was quite fun. And then, excuse me, I kind of like the idea of getting into naval stuff. I've always liked kind of the idea of naval, and I wanted to do fantasy naval stuff. And I looked around at what was out there, and decided I didn't like it. What was out there, and I didn't like what I saw. So I thought, well, I'm a reasonably bright guy. I can have a go at writing some rules. And then I'd met somebody to do some sculpting. I actually said to them, I said, will you sculpt me some models? So I made that, and I really at the time I didn't have a kind of a belief that Spartan Games or anything like that was going to exist. But I was doing it completely purely for me.
So how long? I mean, how long ago was this then, Neil? I mean,
Spartan Games is about 8-9 year old, I guess now, something like that. So it's sort of well, you can do the maths. I'm sure you're a smart lad.
Yes.
So I excuse me. Sorry, I got a bit of a cough, and I apologise for coughing.
No, that's okay. That's fine.
I've got my orange juice. I'm okay.
You take a drink.
So I had the models, and at the time I was sort of I probably hadn't really worked for about 4 years. I'd kind of become a house husband with my kids, and my wife was busy doing stuff. And then I think one day she sort of like must have come home and took a look at all the stuff I'd bought, and then decided that actually it was time to stop being an idiot and go and get a job again. And I was kind of in this kind of odd limbo in as much as my CV as a journalist was probably worth diddly squat.
Yeah.
And because I hadn't done it for a while, and I wasn't exactly going to go back to being the technologist because I was kind of way out of date on that.
Yeah.
So and again, it boils down to Mike, my friend Mike. Again, I was sort of chatting one day, and he was like, "Well, have you thought about selling, some of your stuff, or have you thought about, doing this, or what about selling those fantasy ships?" And I was like, "Well, I don't think anybody would really want to buy them." And he said, "You never know, do you?" And I said, "Well, that's true." So I sat with my wife, and I remember she said to me, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I can have a go." I said, "So that, or I can go and get a job."
Yeah.
And I mean, I wasn't stressed by the idea of going to get a job. I just didn't want to do it, sort of thing. That would have meant kind of getting up and putting proper clothes on and
not being able to go and visit the models whenever you want.
It's like if I'm having a depressed day, so I'll just go and stroke some tanks. And also my wife had bought me a full-size snooker table, so I kind of so my day was mixed in between kind of painting models and then playing snooker, and basically doing what an awful lot of wargamers do, which is basically count their collection and make notes, and then have a plan of what they're going to do with it, and then not
actually do anything at all.
Yeah, and so anyway, I got chatting to some people, and I said, well, actually, I was talking to Frances. She said, "Well, how much money do you want to do?" I said, I reckon I can probably get it off the ground with 10 or 15,000 quid. So she agreed that I could take 10 or 15,000 quid out of the savings and just have a punt. So we basically, I found somebody that could print a rule book for me, and so could print some other bits and pieces. And then I found somebody who could cast the ships up, and I built a little website. I was kind of built it myself, and snapped some pictures, put it on the website, and said, "Hey, look at this! Hey, we're making these things." And that was the thing. And it was a game I called Uncharted Seas.
Oh,
and, And there was a lad Mark who's helping me with some stuff, and bless him, he's a good guy. I like Mark, and we dabbled with some bits and pieces. Anyway, we kind of we talked about stuff for a while. I made it launching the models, and I put them on, and it just went looping. I mean, it just went crazy from the offset. And I think by about week 2, we'd had our first couple of phone calls from American distributors saying, "We like what we see. We'd like to represent you in America." And I hadn't even. I mean, I'd done it as a mail order thing. I hadn't even considered the idea that it might end up in shops or something. Honestly, it wasn't like. I would love to sit here and tell you that I'd sat there with this kind of 15.
You kind of planned it out.
I'd had this 15-page grand plan, this grand strategy. and it was none of that. It was nonsense. I'd planned to make, to sell a couple of hundred ships in the first month or two.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up selling about 15 or 16,000.
Uh-huh.
And it was quite funny, really. And anyway, so we did the chat seat, and it just snowballed. And I remember sitting in the garden with my wife, and at this point there was boxes in the kitchen, boxes in the garage, and there were boxes here and there were boxes there, and we'd even roped in some neighbours to come and help us pack things to get them out the door.
Uh-huh.
Because it was mad. Because my wife had a full-time career, and so she, and I was like, I'd never sold anything retail before. And it was funny. It was sort of, and she said, well, what are you going to do? And she said, because this thing has just got a life of its own, and I know it's not quite what you expected, but what's the plan? And I said, I'm not sure really. I said, but I think I need to get an office. And,
I mean, by that time, I take it the money that had disappeared out the savings that had all come back in by then.
Oh yeah. I can't remember what the first book cost me to print. I'd soaked up the money and dumped it, and I was buying the stock. It eventually got to a point where it became too cumbersome for the guy that was doing the resin. He had his own business anyway, and my stuff started interfering. Having to make my stuff was interfering with him making his own stuff. And I remember going to Salute one year, and we designed some new models for the show, and it was like a couple of weeks before the show that there wasn't none. They hadn't been made because he'd been so busy with his own stuff, and he hadn't kind of got to my stuff. And I remember thinking, oh man, this isn't going to work. This is not good for the customer because this is terrible.
Yeah.
But it was nobody really when it started. We kind of didn't know. Like I said, there had been no grandiose expectation that it was going to go big. So it's quite funny, really. And anyway, in the end, I got an office, and then we ended up taking manufacturing on board ourselves. That was to this day I don't know if it was brave, stupid, foolhardy, or just whatever. But suddenly making it. I sat there one day, having had a couple of supply problems, and said, you know what, I want to make this go. We're going to build this ourselves. We're going to own all the manufacturing ourselves and do it all ourselves on site. But at the time, I didn't know anything about spinning metal or making resin.
No.
So it was all a bit of a shock of a wake up call. So Chattersea did well for us, and it did kind of build the company. And then we brought Five-Star Armada out, and that just went absolutely, bonkers. The first month of Five-Star Armada, I remember it was leading up to the Christmas, and we had to make 44,000 spaceships in a month.
Okay. So, how much sleep did you get, and how much coffee did you consume?
Not much sleep. I brought there was all these freelance model maker guys came in and were doing stuff. And, our landlord gave us another building that we could use where we were kind of casting and demolding. And in fact, I remember I dislocated my right thumb extracting models out of the silicon rubber molds. It was non-stop. We were doing 10 hours a day, and I remember trying to remove a spaceship from one of the molds, and I actually heard my thumb go.
Oh my goodness!
It was the weirdest thing. It was. It got. It went. It was really weird because we had this thing where it kind of doubled every time we did a new game. It kind of doubled, so Five-Star did incredibly well. That's been out for probably 6 years now.
Yeah.
Actually, more than actually probably more like 8 years, I guess. I've been around a while. Dystopian Wars is 6-year-old. Dystopian Wars was the game that completely restructured the company as it was. That just went crazy for us. Just unbelievably crazy. I remember when I launched that game. It was I was on holiday in France, and I had this idea for doing a Victorian super science fiction game. It was plaguing me. I wanted to design this game and my wife tells everybody that was the holiday in France that I completely ruined because, right, I remember we kind of arrived in France and then I spent the entire holiday just designing this game, much to the annoyance of my wife. My children, they didn't care; they were young enough to actually kind of let Dad get away with it, but my wife, to this day, I don't think she was very pleased. But anyway, we did Dystopian Wars, and I remember we shipped it. I remember a couple of our American distributors were not interested in it. They told us that they didn't think it would sell at all, and we were like, well, we've done it now, and let's just see what happens, sort of thing. And Gary, who looks after my sales channel, I remember him ringing me on about the 26th of December, because we were quite pleased with ourselves because we'd hit all of our orders, we'd got everything out the door, and it'd all gone great, and we were all very happy. He rang me up and he said, when does manufacturing go back to work after Christmas? And I said, well, 4th of January, like everybody else. And he said, is there any way you can get them back earlier? And I said, okay. I said, no. And I said, why? And he said, Dystopian Wars has sold really well over Christmas. And I said, what does selling well mean? He said, there's over 80,000 models in the order book.
My goodness.
And he said, and at the time then, with our manufacturing capability and staff and everything else, I think we worked out that it would take us 6 weeks to clear the backlog. We actually had to go and hire a ton of people and basically just get more bodies on to come on board. It was sort of it kind of snowballed and escalated Dystopian Wars has been.
Why do you think that is? I mean,
I don't know, to be honest with you. I'd love to tell you that I was kind of a business genius and I just knew from the start it was all going to happen, but it wasn't like that. It was never. It was never built. I never sat there one day and Francis and we said, we'll end up with 20 odd staff and we'll have all this machinery and it'll be crazy. It was never. That was never the intent. It was always. I don't know what it was, to be honest with you. It was partly me looking for a new career, I suppose. But I was kind of looking for something that I could immerse myself in because my personality is immersive anyway. I like to get involved in things. It's tricky. I felt we innovated very well because I very early on in the history of the company, this whole idea of 3D design to rapid prototyping to product was something I kind of got involved in very, very heavily. So, that was one of the things that caused Uncharted Seas a great deal of problems because the very first models that we made were hand sculpted analog models, and then I took a decision to take it digital and re-sculpt everything digitally. And the problem is we ended up creating a gulf between the two products because you had people who owned the analog fleets and you had shops that had the old digital, the old hand sculpted models. But when the new digital ones came along, they were so much better. They were leaps and bounds better. So we ended up kind of like shooting ourselves in the foot.
Did you get people getting in contact and complaining about the quality?
Compared
to the other.
Yeah, a little bit like that. I mean, probably the biggest thing is that I managed to upset the shops enough that I ended up having to buy a whole lot of my own stock back. Sort of. I don't remember exactly how much it cost me, but I mean, it was tens of thousands of pounds that just got bought back and thrown in the skip.
Dialing it back a bit, because as we said before we started the chat and before we started recording, I said, even at the beginning of the show, I said we've covered so many kind of areas. For those who are looking at kind of like tabletop wargaming, and they'll listen to the show tonight, and we'll have show notes to the website and to the projects that you guys have been involved in. What's the hook for wargaming? Why should somebody with the board game hobby being as big as it is? Why should somebody think about the wargaming side of things?
Well, I mean, one of the things I love about wargaming is I love the kind of camaraderie, but I love the crack of having your mates come round and that whole idea that. So from that point of view, I kind of love that. It gets people together, it gets them interacting, it gets them being social, it gets them being passionate about something, and that's great. the rules. I like world building. I look at it as kind of building the world. That is the thing is the reason I like playing World War II was because I love the history of World War II. I don't like death and killing. I'm not kind of a morbid freak. I don't like the fact that I'm rolling dice because things die.
Yeah.
I love World War II history.
Yeah.
And it's something. My book collection is. I mean, I dread to think how many books I own. I mean, thousands of books, and they're all military history books.
Mm.
So when I used to sort of war game World War II, it was because I used to buy the books, so if I was going to play Pegasus Bridge or the Battle of the Bulge or Kursk or anything like that, I would spend weeks reading and researching, and then I would write the scenarios, making them as historically accurate as I can.
Yeah.
So I kind of looked. For me, it was I loved kind of getting immersed into the subject matter. And so the thing about wargaming, that's what I get to build my fleets. Whether it's Firestorm or Dystopian or Uncharted Season, I get to build my fleet. I get to wargame my fleet. I get to paint my fleet. I get to fine tune my collection and play it how I want to play it. If I want to play tanks, I build a tank army. If I want to play a flyers, or I want to play a naval, it's that for me. It's that whole kind of I get to choose what I want to game, and I get to choose the models I want to game within the world, and then I get to play these scenarios, and then if I then want to take it to a campaign level, I can play the whole world war, and that's the thing that's what I like, and I think that's what people get into. As you mentioned, Paul, we're running this Kickstarter, and it's a Dystopian Wars one. I've just spent the last 4 weeks having the most brilliant time just interacting and reading the messages, because the guys who are looking after the Kickstarter, they're sending me these messages. I'm going onto it and the feedback from people and the reaction and the buzz of it. It's very, very seductive to actually to see these people getting excited over something you've created. That gives me a massive kick.
Yeah.
The fact that they do that and even when they're emailing because they're upset with us over something, it's still at the end of the day, you've got to listen to your customer. A long time ago on a podcast, I remember saying something which a few people, which I think shocked me. I remember saying something like, if you don't listen to your customer, then you need to be stood against the wall and shot in the back of the head, because it's the customer is the lifeblood of what I do.
Yeah.
Without these guys being passionate about my games and my models, who the hell am I?
Do you?
I'm just some bloke who makes models, but those guys are what make it real.
Do you get a chance to play as much as you want to now? I mean, has the days of you playing a couple of rounds of snooker and then going and inspecting the model, is that now kind of far behind you? Do you still do you still get a chance to get stuff to the table?
Well, nobody at work will play me a snooker anyway, because I keep beating them. So yeah, I might need to hire somebody who just happens to be a great snooker player. That'd be phenomenal. Actually, that in fact, what a nirvana that would be. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? The guy's a war gamer. He's great at his job, and he can whoop me at snooker. That'd be awesome. That'd be great. I'd be very pleased by that. No, I don't. I mean, the last couple of years, definitely not, because we've been very busy with Halo, on top of everything else. So I haven't had a lot of time to game. I game at home. I'm trying to convince my son that he wants to game more. He's more.
Is this the technical wizard I spoke to earlier on?
This is the young gentleman who got this working for us. Yeah. Who will now be in his bedroom blowing the hell out of something on his Xbox. I dread to think what, because he won't be anywhere near Strictly Come Dancing. That's for sure. He'll be I don't know, demolishing a zombie or something, or playing.
Listen, as long as I check it's taping, then she'll be happy, because the other half is out. Involved in Christmas festivities, so it wasn't a case of, so are you okay? You're going to be good speaking to this guy tonight. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't a case of make sure the kids go to bed okay and everything like that. It was a case of, if Strictly isn't taping, I'm going to kill you. And it's like, but you watch it on iPlayer. What difference does it make? Something to do with how it fast forwards.
No. My two sit and watch it live so they can vote.
Really? Well, there you go. let's touch on Halo.
Actually, I've got a new idea for Strictly Come Dancing. Actually, my vote on it is that instead of voting them off the show, what they should do is the winning couple should be shot.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Not the losing couple should be shot. That'll make them dance better, don't you think?
Yeah, potentially. I think there might be some complaints.
Well, I mean, not north of the border, there wouldn't be.
No, maybe not. We would see. No. We'll have to see.
People in York should be fine with that.
And there goes the. Well, no, they're probably Yorkshire.
No, it's okay. I'm from Yorkshire. I'm fine.
So there you go. That's fine. That's not a problem at all.
Sorry, I took a sideline of the conversation. Where did we get to on that one?
Halo.
Where did we get? Halo.
I mean,
no. You asked me about gaming. Not as much as I'd like to. Lots of gaming with rules writing. I've got Derek up in Edinburgh, who's the main rules man, who works with Derek, and Derek's a gem. I couldn't do it without him. And it's sort of I really would like to game more, but I get it in when I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Halo, I mean.
Oh yes.
How? How did it happen? I mean, people are going to ask, how did it happen? And I'm going to just answer the question, which is, you send emails out to people, and what happens is that they come back to you and say, "Yeah, let's have a conversation," and that's kind of how these things happen.
Yeah, in essence,
wonder,
I was in the office a couple of years back, chatting to somebody, and he said to me, "If you could license any game, what would you license?" And I said, "Halo." And he was like, "Okay," and he said, "I know a licensing agent." He said, "Shall I ask her?" And I said, "Yeah, go." I said, "Go for it." And anyway, he contacted her, and it ironically turned out that she knew somebody who worked in licensing for 343, and we got connected up, and then. They said, I don't know the full story of how it all happened in Seattle, but I know that they agreed to have a conference call, and anyway, so there was kind of like we did the conference call, and so they turned up and we turned up, and we're all sat there on the end of a telephone, and it was a really, really nice conversation. They were incredibly passionate people. You could obviously literally from the get go, you can tell that these guys just love what they do. They love the whole universe. They love what they've done with Halo, and of course, I was trying to desperately not be a fanboy because obviously I love Halo as well. So I'm sorry,
didn't want to go down on your knees and go, "I love
you." Exactly. Yeah, so try my best to not be like that, and probably failing miserably. And it turned out that a couple of the guys in the studio, they were familiar with Spartan Games, and they knew Dystopian was. They knew Firestorm Armada. And they said, "Look, thanks for the conversation, and we'll come back to you." And I remember we put the phone down. I remember looking at my wife, and she went, "Well, that went really well." And I went, "Yeah." And then she said to me, "So what happens if they say yes?" I went, "I don't know. I hadn't got that far on my thinking."
Just ask the question.
I honestly hadn't. So anyway, and then it was not very long after that. We got the message back from us saying that we've had the conversation, and what the hell? Go on then, let's do it.
That sounds fantastic.
It was bizarre. It was you could have knocked me over with a feather. Actually, I was very shocked. I mean, I believe in my guys. I've got great people working with me. I'm very lucky that I've got some fabulously talented folk that have come to live in the middle of nowhere, because we are literally in the middle of nowhere in Somerset. In the middle of nowhere, talented bunch of guys, very passionate, energetic, and they come to work for me. And then like I said, the guys at 343 said yes, and we kind of like we were here. Suddenly we were on this kind of roller coaster ride, and it was like wow, Halo.
Were you kind of like? Did it take time to sink in? Because it is.
Yeah, it took a while. I'd probably say the whole relationship took probably somewhere between 6 and 9 months to figure out, because it's complicated. It's not just a video game to those guys. There's this multi-billion-dollar franchise that is beloved by their fans around the world, and suddenly we come along and we are a tiny cog in the whole kind of grand scheme of it, and of course, so we had to learn how to work with them on how they do, and they work very differently to us, and we probably shocked the hell out of them in the way that we would do things, because we were used to just turning on a dime. If I wake up on a Monday morning and have an idea to do something, I can walk into the office and walk up to one of the CAD guys and go, I need you to make me a 14-legged alien space monster thing with 26 eyes, and I'll have it on Wednesday, please. And off he pops. I mean, we've never made a model like that. I'm being really stupid there, but you kind of get what I'm saying.
No.
And then I've got this kind of enormous rapid prototyping machines that I can then take that CAD file, put it onto the rapid prototyper. 12 hours later, the thing comes off the machine. The guys in manufacturing clean it, submaster it. So within probably 4 days, I can have something that can go to market.
It's just crazy.
And whereas they can't work that way, because there's a whole business that has to kind of run in this regimented process. It has to get signed off. It has to get validated. It has to get checked. It has to make sure it's official canon. And so it's a much more complicated beastie. And of course, and suddenly we kind of like we're sliding into that process, and they've been incredibly understanding and incredibly supportive of us over the last coming up to 2 years. Now we're very, very lucky, and also, bless them, we went to them at one point and said, we'd like to design some spaceships for you, because
my goodness.
And you know what they said? That sounds like a great idea. Off you pop.
Fantastic.
And so literally within 6 months of the relationship, we were designing brand new spaceships that would appear in the Halo universe.
How did that? Is there a possibility that the ships that you've designed to be in fleet battles are going to end up in a future iteration of the next game? Then
I don't know. I've no idea what their plans are like that. I've seen the proofs of a book whereby that's done by another company, whereby spaceships that I designed are in that book. That's kind of cool.
How did that make you feel when you saw that?
Well, do you know what? Very proud for my model makers, because that's one of the kind of funniest things about running the War Games company, is that for all of these donkey's years, the journalist, I just kept selling me. It was all about selling me. Anybody would pay me. Yeah. The journalists are like the most amazing whores, basically. People pay us money and we'll do stuff. And I had that for all those years. And suddenly with the War Games, I suddenly had this thing whereby I had these young guys who just were incredibly talented, making cool stuff, and I kind of found myself getting excited on behalf of them. So when suddenly the Microsoft guys are like, what about this or that, so the guy makes a spaceship, somebody like Chris, and then it goes off to them, and the Microsoft guys are like, yeah, that's great, that works really well, thank you, and it's like that's a massive feather in his cap. It's a feather in the company's cap, and that's exciting. So and they, I remember on a trip to Seattle with I took one of the model makers, Chris, went with me. We were in the meeting room with these guys, and we had the Microsoft guys were all sat around. The 343 guys were there, and the art director, the Halo 5 art director, was there. With the other gap, so and then this guy has got status inside that company. He's the art director of Halo 5, and they were working on Halo 5 when we were there. and in fact, I think it might have been about it was pretty much coming out the door. I think it must have been around about the October. Anyway, we were sort of sat in the meeting, and it was the coolest incident. We were discussing spaceships, and and my lad was discussing the language, the design language with the art director. They were having this fantastic conversation and dialogue about the design language of spaceships. and it sort of one of our models was there, and it was a Covenant ORS heavy cruiser, and that had been designed by Chris. And I remember Sparth picking the spaceship up and looking at it, and basically turned to Glenn Israel, and said, and it was like, this model is a lovely Covenant model. Look at it, and they were looking at it, and they were being wonderfully flattering about it, and it was really nice. And then I can't remember the exact words, but basically, in essence, what Sparth said about the spaceship being perfect as Covenant, and then Glenn said, "Well, I didn't design it," and he pointed across the table at my guy and said, "He designed it." And that was such a cool moment. I mean, and I think that Chris, who's probably, I've no idea how tall he is, probably let's call him 5'10", suddenly swelled to like 6'4".
It's just like, I'm the Billy Big Boy now.
Like, oh my God, and it was so cool because that wonderful kind of validation of what we've done.
Yeah,
it was a very nice validation because it was hard work, and it took a lot of effort, and it took a lot of effort on our part to learn to work with these guys, and incredibly exciting, and all at the same time. I mean, it did take me away from some of my other games because we had to focus hard on what we were doing. But as you've seen by the Dystopian Wars Kickstarter, we're back in with our own stuff, and really hammering home the development. 2017 is going to be
massive,
an amazing year for Dystopian Wars and Firestorm. We've got an awful lot of really exciting stuff coming out, and there's a massive push to kind of re-engage with that customer base on a very large way, and the backers on the Dystopian Wars Kickstarter have been phenomenal, and we're putting a lot of hard work in that one, and we're really excited to be sharing it with people. But no, it's been a hell of a 2 years. I mean, a hell of a 2 years, and of course we brought the ground game out for Halo, and it's sort of they have been. You couldn't have asked for more support. Honestly, you couldn't have asked for a relationship to be more partner driven. It wasn't just a case of them saying, "Give us the money, he's the Halo thing, bugger off." It was never like that at all. It was always a mutual respect thing, two-way traffic. They've worked with us incredibly. They've given us probably more time than we deserved.
I don't know. I think when you get that precious about your, when you're talking about something which isn't just a product, it's something that it has its own universe, it has its own canon, it has its own fan base, that they get upset. They got upset the last couple of game releases because of multiplayer aspects and stuff like that. I mean, they can be very, very vocal when they don't like something. So for you, kind of like stepping in, because am I right in saying there's kind of like, is it gone as far as there tournaments now that take place for kind of like Halo?
Yeah, I mean, that people will play tournaments in stores and things, and what tends to happen is certain shows people will very much. It's cool to let people empower themselves to run those tournaments. So we have a tournament kit available, and people run them. We've not done anything and pushed it ourselves yet.
Yeah.
But it's very much we kind of you let for shows and groups and things to organise. But yeah, I mean there's tournaments take place.
And has this made you more confident? Is there other IPs that you've thought about maybe approaching with a similar kind of idea to say, well, we could do this for you, we could do that for you?
We could. I mean, I think in all honesty, right now, we're working on Halo and having something as big as Dystopian Wars and Firestorm already, and we've got things like Planetfall and Legions, our other game. By the time that's plenty to keep us busy.
You don't need another. No thanks. You don't need another IP.
It was. I think it's. We understand these things now, and I think that it's like all of these things. It's a bit. The first time you do it, you don't really know, so you learn, and so of course we would understand the aspects. It's like doing a Kickstarter. We started a Kickstarter a few years back, and we didn't get it right, and we ended it after about a couple of weeks because it just
wasn't going anywhere. No.
Well, it was, but it was I don't think we understood we didn't understand Kickstarter enough
Right.
And we were unfocused in it, so we ended it because we were all over the shop with it, and it made no sense. It just didn't make sense before.
Uh-huh.
So we stopped it. With this one, we came in a more focused approach, and we understood it better. But even over the last 4 weeks, we've learnt so much more about it. So if I ever did another one, I'd approach it differently, because it's like all things you learn and you get better. And like I say, we've been. It's been incredible the support we've had from the backers on the one we've got, and they've been fantastic at if we made a mistake or we got something wrong, they worked with us, and they didn't get upset by it. They've kind of let us fix it and sort of that, and that's been wonderful. And I can just but thank these people for having the belief.
Well, you've done it. You've just thanked them. So when this goes out, I mean the campaign, as we said, this is strictly night, so everybody can probably guess it's Saturday night. So the campaign at this point has got 3 days to go. So we're in closing time. As I said, me and Colin did chat about this a little bit on the show that's just come out that we've done. But you are almost reached the 100k level in the funding. And that's double your original target. You've got 3 days to go, and you've got about 640 odd kind of backers. For those, I mean, this will potentially go out with a minimum amount of time left on the Kickstarter. So if anyone's kind of sitting on the fence, why should they be looking at the Dystopian World kind of expansion?
The thing with Dystopian was is that when I built the world, I kind of came at it with an idea for a war game, and then I met a guy, Franco Samaco, and we very quickly started having a conversation about how we build the background, and we built. So what Dystopian World is it's a great game as a war game, because it's air, land, and sea all in one. It's got an amazing, gigantic raft of models. I mean, there's over 600 models we've sculpted for that game over the years, and it is a true world war. So you've got kind of all of these factions and different types, and it just utterly encapsulates Victorian super science fiction. This all kind of crazy Jules Vernian type stuff. Great rules, great world, great background, but we just keep getting better. I mean, the model makers just get better.
Yeah.
So the thing with the Kickstarter is that it's all of the things that we wanted to do to the world. Brand new set of rules, the new campaign books, the new campaign guides, the new nation guides, and a whole ton of new models and the new 2-player set and the whole. It is all the things we wanted to do, and it was really weird because we ran a survey, and the thing I'm most proud about is that the Kickstarter is completely based around a survey we did of the customers, and we had we ran the survey. I think it was on Friday. I think it was possibly a Thursday. By the middle of the weekend, we bless them, over 2,000 customers come in and told us exactly what they wanted for the game.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, a few thousand more had come on board. So by the end of it, we had this amazing set of information that says the customer wants this, 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 and this. And I'd kind of operated in the dark a little bit. The Dystopian was kind of like slightly frightened me a little bit as a game, because we've made so much and sold so much.
Yeah.
And we've sold millions of objects for that game in its lifetime. Millions. I mean, just pieces of models, bits of models. Just so much of it, unbelievable. That I didn't know what to do next. I was sort of like, I'd almost paralysed myself with not. I was kind of trying to outguess myself all the time. What do I do next? What do I do?
Yeah.
To the point where I was so indecisive, I'd done nothing. Because and it was really weird. Whereas I felt very empowered by the research, that I felt confident. That I kind of felt confident to do it. And as a consequence, it meant that with the Kickstarter, it's to say it's finely tuned. It sounds a bit pompous, but it's tuned to be what we think people want for the game. If that makes sense.
No, I mean it's the second album issue, isn't it? It's where if you do make the album that people call a classic, a stunning debut, strong from the beginning to the end, that when you go to, put together the second idea or wherever it is, you kind of do end up thinking, well, I have now not only got to think about what creatively I want to put out the first time, I've also got to think about what people potentially expect to hear the second time when I put out a new product. I know. Now I think getting customer feedback is one of the best things you can do, because you always get that maybe extra winning idea where somebody says, well, why don't you just put this extra bit in here and that'll allow you to do all of this, and you're like, oh, okay. Hadn't thought about that,
Yeah, I'm actually gonna. The whole research thing. I want to do this on a much more regular basis. One of the other things we did on Kickstarter was one of the pledges was to let people work with our model makers to actually design their own models.
Oh my goodness!
And we're really excited about that, because I want to see what comes out of people's heads. I want to kind of like some of the ideas that they've shared with me during the Kickstarter have been fantastic. So this whole idea that research, talk to the customer. Don't try and guess. It's not for me to try and guess anymore. It's talk to these guys more. And we're like with Firestorm Armada, big. Without speaking, what do they want? What do they? These guys have paid their money to play the game. They bought the models.
Yeah,
they're the ones who want to play with it every day. I should be talking to them much more to get because this information it's worth its weight in gold.
You've probably got guys out there that have got access to 3D printers now, which are going down and printing out their own little things, the little mods that they've done. I mean, that's where we are with things now. People can take a little idea and kind of expand it into their own thing, which is very strong and very powerful. In terms of going forward, then, I mean, you've mentioned more stuff for Firestorm, more stuff for Dystopia Wars. What's the future hold? I mean, you've obviously said, well, we've got enough to keep us going for some time. But
we do. I mean, Dystopian Wars. I mean, Dystopian Wars we're doing what we call the Core Nation expansion now. We've got the Alliance Nation expansion to come, which is going to be pretty exciting. But we've also got what we call it the Firestorm Galaxy expansion, which is taking our core game. We have gazillions of players worldwide for Firestorm. There's a 1980s word, isn't it? Gazillion.
That's the type of thing you would see in potentially some kind of computer magazine, Neil.
It sounds like the sort of nonsense we'd have used in the school playground in the 80s, but never mind.
How many pixels has that got? It's got its gazillion.
It's got megalots. So we got there's a lot going on there. We've got Planetfall. There's a lot. I mean, that's what we're doing with the Firestorm one. We've been working on that for a while now. Probably going back to Gen Con this year is when I I had a fantastic set of meetings with a whole bunch of guys in the US to start working on that stuff for me, and then it's taken a while to gel it all together. But that'll be a massive. But I'm hugely excited about where Firestorm goes next year. So no, I don't even have to think much about what the next 2 years are going to be, because there's lots to do. We've still got lots of things to do with the Halo universe, but right now it's a big focus on Dystopian and Firestorm. We have 2 or 3 other games that we've started working on designing that we've kind of parked for now, because the customers very clearly told us, don't do the new games, we want this for Dystopian and Firestorm. So we listened to the customers, so we parked those projects, and we're fully engaged on those 2 worlds for them, and that's going to keep. There's tons of work to keep us going for that. So next year and the year after is fulfilling all of this new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows when the other new games are going to come? They will at some point come, because we've got a bunch of great ideas. But we've got plenty to keep us busy. The other thing with the Kickstarter as well is that we're going to try something different with the Kickstarter, in that we're going to try and deliver very rapidly for the customer.
Yes.
So it ends in the next 3 days. But our intent is to deliver in March.
No, really?
Yeah.
That'll be. I mean, you'll get multiple amounts of kudos for that. You'll be utterly loved and cuddled.
It's sort of the hardest bit to deliver in that time frame are the books, because we've actually got 10 books that we're working on simultaneously.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of books there. Actually, no, is it 10? 7, 8. Yeah, 10. 10 books. So ironically, the model making, we've already started. We started the model making production while the Kickstarter was running. So as models were finalised, we started to get them ready. So we start production on the Kickstarter models the first week of January, in earnest, to get them out to people. So we're very. I mean, getting their models to them is easy. The books will be the hardest bit, because that's going to take an awful lot out of me over that time frame. But no, we're feeling pretty good about it. I mean, it's like I say, it'll probably take us to the end of March to get all of the books to everybody. But the models is done. Well, the thing is, if you fund it, the way I look at this is that we picked a funding amount that meant that we could throw resource at making this happen for the customer.
Yeah.
And if these people have been kind enough to give you their money, you have an obligation to do a good job for them. Isn't that how it works?
I think Kickstarter. We've had so many different people from so many different businesses that are using Kickstarter for different reasons now, and they have different viewpoints on the Kickstarter model. I mean, we've had Matt Gilbert from Mantic Games on, and he said, like, if we didn't do Kickstarter, we wouldn't be doing games, because there's no other viable route for us at the moment. They're working towards kind of retail releases. We do get some of the smaller guys that say, listen, I mean, most recently we had Kevin Young on, who I keep talking about, but he had a Kickstarter which had a goal of 12 grand, and it just finished on Thursday night there at £128,000. So for him, that's not only just set his business going, but it has allowed him to look at it and say, well, I can potentially look at the next 2 or 3 games for himself. I think that Kickstarter, and we've said this before, because of the level of presentation that you have to put together to even bring a Kickstarter campaign to get interest in it, I think that's effectively raised the bar for a lot of companies. And I also think people are very, very vocal on Kickstarter if they're not getting what they want very, very quickly, very straight away. You will see comments turn into very direct and vicious feedback if the campaign promises aren't being left, or if there isn't enough communication on there. Because obviously the campaign stays open, as you're aware yourself. This campaign that you're running, this will still stay open once even after the kind of the funded gate is closed. So
yeah,
it kind of I think people are more vocal on Kickstarter, I think, than they used to be. I think there is more of an expectation of a product being delivered as well. And
I get it. But the thing is, if you're going to engage with somebody, if you're going to kind of walk up with your soapbox, put your soapbox on the floor and stand in it and say, you know what, guys, I would like you to give me some money, and for that money I will give you X, Y, Z. Well, you got to give them X, Y, and Z. You can't just flannel it. You've got because obviously, clearly, I would imagine that if you take a look at them, I am completely a newbie to this whole world of Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I don't. There are people out there that are fundamentally much more knowledgeable and talented about these things than I am. We felt confident because we knew we had a good product to show them and a good message, and we've done that. But I think at the end of the day, is you've got to you got to deliver the goods. If you're going to walk out there and put your hand out and say put some money in it, you have to you've got to step up to the plate and deliver for that. and it's a hard thing. I mean, again, I get that something. I mean, it's from our point of view, we're learning about it all the time. I mean, I kind of it's been a fascination interacting with everybody on it, and it was a real eye opener for me.
Yeah, it must be strange, kind of being able to interact with customers before the actual product was in their hands. Because I guess when you were doing the previous stuff, like your previous dystopian stuff, your Firestorm and everything like that, you maybe didn't have that level of interactivity even before the product was there for them to look at.
It's to some extent you're on the wing and a prayer with it, because you have an idea, and we developed it. I think it's. I mean, somebody asked me the other day, is Kickstarter? Does that mean it's completely? Is it a completely different model for Spartan Games in the future? I don't think so. We'd never done it, so we tried it, and it's been an interesting experience, a good experience, an empowering experience. But I think it doesn't mean that everything we'll ever do, ever, will be Kickstarter. That's not how we're looking at it, because I think that's not what we've. In this instance, it made sense. It was a good thing to do. Also, it has for the war game sector, it has become a sales and marketing tool.
Yes, yeah. I mean, yeah.
And so it's sort of I think it changes the dynamic of the industry, because it's sort of there are we're not the world's largest company. So therefore, there's always a risk involved. And I'm not saying that you necessarily want to abuse it and make your customer take all the risk, because it's not about that.
No.
But I think that it's sort of if we're operating in a space whereby the competitive field is utilising this mechanism to take itself to market,
you have to consider it.
You have to consider it, because otherwise you're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
I mean, but having said that, the one thing I will say is that we are very loyal to our retail channel. Our distributors and our retail channel those guys have been phenomenal with us over the years, and we're very loyal to it. So, we don't do this to bypass these guys. No. Everything we've done on the Kickstarter will go to retail, and I think that. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to build a product. And then get these Kickstarter backers to give me the money, and then basically sort of make them wait while I take it to the sales channel. I'm not going to do that.
I do see retail kind of pledges pop up on a much more regular basis than they used to.
Oh well, we had them from the beginning. I think from about 2 or 3 days in, we'd set the retailer ones up. I think it's harder for a retailer to embrace it. However, I think what's important from our point of view is that we take it to the retail channel as quick as we can, but not to the detriment of the kind folk that have backed us.
See, I think that's where the issue has been on some campaigns, where people have walked into their local favourite game store to see that something that they've backed on Kickstarter is arrived
he's on the
in
shelf
the
cheaper.
Retailers. Yeah, it's arrived in the retailers within the same 2 weeks as them actually getting it in their, in their hands. And I think
or even worse, before they even got
it. Yes, and I've definitely heard stories of that, of people kind of leaving angry comments to say, where's mine? Because my local retail store's got mine there, sitting there, so can I just take it off the shelf, please? Which is, kind of interesting. I mean, Kickstarter's here to stay, and different people are going to utilise it through different methods. I think
crowdfunding is completely legitimate. If you go to most accountants or even banks, then crowdfunding is certainly a legitimate mechanism now in business.
Yes.
For raising investment, absolutely.
No, I told my boss about some of the people's efforts, and he was standing in shock at the amount of money that I was telling him about Kingdom Death Monster, which is the darling of Kickstarter at the moment, which is sitting at something like £7.5 million. And I was telling him that, and he was just like, "What? They're doing that? And what? This is a board game?" I says, "Yes, it's a board game." "This is a board game?" I says, "Yes, it's a board game." And it's got little plastic figures. I says, "Well, yeah, there's kind of plastic figures, and there's cardboard." "Yes, there's cardboard." 7.5 million. I said, "Yes." And I just left him, contemplating, wondering, if I'm going to turn up to work next week and there's going to be like a board game idea meeting or something like that to see if they can raise the same type of money. No, I mean, for the Kickstarter, as I say, there's a link out on there on the previous show notes. We will stick the link out again for you guys. If people want to keep, if they want to kind of keep in contact with yourselves and keep an eye on what you guys are going to be doing over the next kind of year, 6 months, whatever, how would they find you on the interwebs? What's the best way to do that?
It's spartangames.co.uk. There's a Facebook page which I haven't got a clue what it'll be, but it'll be facebook.com/SpartanGames or something probably.
If you search for Spartan Games, you'll probably find it.
People can always email me, neil@spartangames.co.uk. I love chatting to people, so by all means drop me an email. Always happy to talk toy soldiers. Seriously, honestly, I love it. It's great.
Well,
I was chatting to a guy yesterday. We were talking to him about that.
Well, that's what I did. I
was going to say, I know you cyberstalked us. That was fine. One of the Kickstarter will get people making the pleasure to make models, and we had there was a guy I was talking to yesterday, and it was kind of we must have shared 15 or 20 emails last night just talking about design ideas, and that's kind of like, to me, that's relaxing.
Yeah.
To me, that's funny. It's just chatting about these things, because also, it's not like I'm trying to develop a cure for cancer. I make toy soldiers,
which is you sound all the happier for it, to be perfectly honest.
No, it's good. Honestly, I use the word blessed a lot. I probably sound like I'm a nutter, but I'm very fortunate, to be in a situation whereby, you've got a customer base that's allowed me to build a business that's kept me making toy soldiers all these years, and that's just great.
No, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Just as a quick aside, you're obviously aware of the competition that's out there. So have you ever kind of opened up a box of, like, say, Star Wars Armada or X-Wing or anything like that and taken a poke around that stuff? Or is that just kind of like, you don't go near it, we don't talk about it kind of thing?
I've seen X-Wing being played, and I don't own it myself. I took a look at Armada in a shop a while ago, but from our point of view, lovely production quality on that stuff. Those guys did a great job on that one. It's not my cup of tea. Probably what I'm trying to think. Probably the last one I looked at was. So there was a couple of board games that were shown to me last year that I liked the look of. One of them was like a kind of a Jack the Ripper type one. That was quite fun. You kind of
Letters from Whitechapel.
I think that was the one. Yeah. There was a friend of mine turned it, but I was actually quite impressed with it. It was good fun. I enjoyed it.
Did you play it?
Briefly, we were in a hotel. It was their family and my family. Brought some board games.
Well, we did our top 5 in the last show, and Letters from Whitechapel's there. It's fantastic. Get it. Okay. It's absolutely amazing.
My wife was playing it a lot with the kids. She was there. They were playing it a lot. I was actually kind of, like, to be honest with you, I found the snooker table as fast as I could.
Oh no! It's very, very, very good fun. Absolutely good fun.
That's cool.
Wholeheartedly recommend it. It's very, very tense, but it's a hidden movement game. But it's just so much. It's very, very good fun. I would avoid this.
Gotcha.
I would stay away from the snooker table the next time they say, "Do you want a game of it?" I think you potentially might enjoy it quite a lot.
Excellent! I'll give it a go.
It's a really, really, really good game. No, but I guess I need to. This is thank you very, very much for coming on.
No. I appreciate the time. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's well, as you can probably tell, I like talking about toy soldiers.
Well, and you seem to have you've made a very, very successful business out of it. So I think being passionate about your hobbies kind of led you down a path which a lot of people would like to be kind of involved in. For people who obviously want to keep a track of what we're doing, you can find us on Facebook, We're Not Wizards. You can find us on Twitter, We're Not Wizards. You can email us, which is magic@we'renotwizards.com or .co.uk. We're on Instagram, We're Not Wizards. We have a YouTube channel, but we have not got anything on it. And give us a shout, give us a tweet. We'll obviously make sure that everything that we've talked about tonight is going to be shoved in the show notes, so we've got something to show. I guess there's two things we do always at the end, and the first thing is to remind everybody that we are many things, but we're not wizards.
Oh, I'm most certainly not one of those.
Absolutely.
Although I did once tell somebody once asked me where did the idea for Spartan Games come from.
Yeah.
And I told him that I pulled it out of a wizard's sleeve, which he went very quiet, and I think he just thought he thought I'd gone completely loony. But
you're definitely not a wizard.
No, not in the slightest bit.
You're a fleet commander.
Well, probably more of a clown.
I don't know.
I could be a
jester,
clown.
No, I've had a lot of fun, and this has been fascinating just to hear about the journey of Spartan Games. There is only one more thing to do, which is to say goodbye. So it's again, Neil, thank you so much for your time. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully,
no, thank you. It's been a hit.
Hopefully, this means that Strictly is now finished.
What, for forever?
Well, probably there'll be. I think there's another show tomorrow night, so we could always have a chat tomorrow night if you wanted. But until then,
we might have to. we classify it as our therapy. It could be our therapy session.
That's fantastic. You just have a chat on Skype and not even record it. But until the next time, it's a goodbye from Neil.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you very much. Good chatting.
And it's a goodbye from me. Stay safe. Stay away from dancing. Stop dancing. Stop it now. I've turned off the telly. I'm glad you're finished.
You do realise that we just signed it. We just signed that show off sounding like a really bad version of the Two Ronnies.
It's a goodbye from me, and it's a goodbye from him, which is fine. But until the next time, people, goodbye.